Hello everybody and welcome back to A Royal Reader. My name is Cece and today I'm going to be doing a combination of my May reads and my June reads because I didn't film anything. So I need to let you guys know what I've read and how they went. So over the course of the 2 months I managed to read about 5-6 books, I think. I will say it's definitely because there was some big ones in there. So with that being said, let's just get into it. So the first one that I managed to complete was Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This is a middle grade following Amari, who has lost her brother and she has been desperate to try and find him, but she's only like 11 or 12 years old, so she doesn't really have much of a means to find him until one day she discovers a suitcase in her brother's room that has her name on it, and this suitcase sort of enlightens her into a world that she did not expect or even knew existed, and she gets trapped in this sort of school, I guess you could say, for gifted people. I don't actually know what their job is to do. It's very, very much like the school for the Men in Black, basically. All of the like natural phenomenons that we have seen throughout the world are actually cover-ups for like big evil monsters and stuff like that. So she discovers that her brother is actually a part of that and enrolls in the school to try and find out where he is and what the go is. So yes, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. It was good. I definitely could see some resemblance to Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. Very, very similar concept, except one is more sci-fi and the other is more whimsical and magical and things like that. But nonetheless, I am excited to see where the second book goes. So the next book I read was actually part of a 24-hour reading challenge that I completely failed. Anyway, so the one that I read was The Witcher: The Last Wish. This is like 0.5 in the series. This one is essentially what the first season of The Witcher on the Netflix series is based off. It is, if you've watched the Netflix series and then you read this, it will literally just be like watching the TV show. Yeah, if you don't know what The Witcher is about, The Witcher is this sort of being, I guess you could say. They are called mutants because something about their blood is different and they're just stronger than normal humans, they're faster, they're just very, very good at killing monsters. So our main character, Geralt, is a witcher, and he's one of like the last ones surviving, I guess you could say. And we just sort of follow him as he gets wrapped up in this quest, I guess you could say. Yeah, you just follow along and see the different beasts he has to kill, I guess you could say. If you've seen the TV series, you know what type of like adventures that he goes on. So yeah, because I have already read this book, I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I still found it enjoyable. The writing style I was a little bit hesitant about, but it's very, very accessible, and quite funny at times as well, except I already knew what the jokes were going to be because I've already seen it. So yes, I'm interested to read the next book to see if that is any different. So yes. The next one that I also read for that same 24-hour readathon was A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is just a little novella that sort of takes place in between the events of what happens after A Court of Wings and Ruin and before A Court of Silver Flames. So it's just a little sort of week in the lives of the characters as they are getting ready to celebrate the winter solstice. It's a nice, just fun little read. I don't really know what else to say. I'm not going to say what it's about because it could possibly spoil stuff for the series. So yeah, I think I gave this a 3 2.5, something around there. It was nice and fun, nothing too crazy or stuff like that. So the next one I finished is actually a ebook, and this was a arc that I got off NetGalley. So this is the Dark Apprentice by Val Neal, I think is. Yes. So this was absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed it. Excuse you. In this we have sort of two main characters, but our sole point of view that we follow from is a guy called Nikolai. He is this really narcissistic yet charismatic wizard asshole who is obsessed with learning the dark magics like necromancy and death magic and stuff like that. And then we have our second main character called Medea, I think is her name. She is this very well-known sorceress, witch. I don't know, they don't actually give them names. Mage, I guess you could say. She has been living for thousands and thousands of years, and she knows every type of magic that you could possibly think of, and Nikolai wants her to teach him, but she refuses because she's had apprentices in the past, but they've sort of turned around and tried to kill her in the end because they want power, I guess. In the end, she does end up teaching Nikolai, and it is just a crazy dark academia whirlwind. It was very interesting to see the magic system of the world. It definitely reminds me a lot of the Harry Potter magic system in a way, but there is so many different aspects of the magic that was really interesting to read. And I think if you are interested in learning about magic through a fantasy book, there's obviously other aspects to this book, but the one thing that I really took from it was how well thought out the magic system was. Yeah, definitely give this a go. I really enjoyed it. Next, I decided that I was going to try and do a themed reading vlog that never really took off. And the book that I picked up for this one was The Furies by Katie Lowe, I think. Was not what I thought it was. The back of this says something about like the death of a girl, and how 4 girls know the truth about it, and they're only just telling their story about it now. In this we follow our main character called Violet, I think her name is. Very strange narration, I want to say. It definitely felt a bit like a fever dream while I was reading it. Also definitely gave me massive The Craft vibes. If you have seen that movie and then read this book, you will understand what I mean. It was just like, new girl moves to a new school, sees the 3 girls who are off to the side together, who are just, you know, the weirdos, and she gets brought into them and their group, and just witchy stuff starts happening. And yeah, it did not go the way I thought. I didn't really enjoy it all that much. I was quite bored in places, so I only gave this, I think, a 3 or a 2 star. I can't exactly remember. But yeah, the writing style was also quite weird. Yeah, just very odd. Was not expecting it to go the way it did. Kind of think the synopsis was a little bit misleading, because I was expecting it to sort of like go back and tell the story of how this girl died, but you don't get that at all. So yeah, there was that one that I read. Next up, the last 2 that I have read. These are big chunky books. Big chunky books. So first one that I read was The Way of Kings, part 1 of the Starlight archive by Brandon Sanderson. This was a big book. Oh boy. And it took me a month to read. No joke. So this was very interesting. It's my first Brandon Sanderson book, and I can say that I definitely enjoyed it. If you are intimidated by these, don't be. Just take it one step at a time. I think I was, excuse you, I was reading 50 pages a day. I had separated it and everything. This story follows a large cast of characters, but the main conflict that this story sort of focuses on is that there was a treaty signing between the 2 neighboring kingdoms, the Athlehi and the Athleki and the Parshendi, that's what it is. So there is a treaty signing between the Athleki and the Parshendi, and on the night of this treaty signing, the king of the Athleki is murdered, brutally murdered, and the sort of treaty just goes right out the window, and we follow the story 10 years after, I think it is, after the king has been killed and the two neighboring countries are just at war with each other. So that's the sort of main aspect of it, and then we separated it down into the different characters that we follow. So one of the characters that we mainly follow the perspective from is Kaladin. He is a warrior who has he was hell-bent on trying to get into the king's army to fight against the Parshendi, but he got himself caught up in a bit of a bad situation and is ended up like working as a slave for the armies. His perspective was really interesting. I loved reading from him. Kaladin was definitely my favorite. And then we have a second character who we also follow from, not as much, but he is Dalinar, and he is the late king's brother. And he is sort of dealing with sort of his nephew being the king and then having to go and fight these people constantly, and he just wants the war to end. And he's also getting these really weird visions that are sort of like, he's not too sure if he believes them or not, and it's just causing a bit of drama within himself as well as like with his sons and his nephew and things like that. And then the other character that we follow is Shaylin, I can't remember exactly how to pronounce her name. She is a scholar and she is hell-bent on trying to become the apprentice to, I've forgotten her name. She is the late king's sister, and she is a very well-known scholar in this world actually, which I found quite interesting. In this world, all of the women are actually the ones who do most of the scholarly work. There's only, I think, a handful of the men who know how to like write and read and stuff. All of the men in this world, they don't do reading, they don't write, they don't do any of that aspect. They are mainly just like taught how to fight and things like that. So that was really interesting to, you know, they have like these women who are just there to read them shit, and it was just cool. I was just like, yes, that's so, yes. But anyway, yeah, she's hell-bent on trying to be this lady's apprentice, and it's for a other reason that I don't exactly want to say because it's possibly a spoiler. But anyway, I think if I had read this in a shorter period of time, because there was about a week where I put it down, I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more. It did lag in a couple of places because the world and just the folklore of the world is so heavy, and a lot of the names are kind of confusing to try and remember. I think if I had tabbed it, I probably would have done a better job, but nonetheless, I still really enjoyed this. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I am really looking forward to seeing the next book. And lastly, for the month of June, I finished A Court of Silver Flames. That means I have finally completed one Sarah J. Maas series. Yes. So this one is a second trilogy / fourth book in the series for the Court of Thorns and Roses. So this one follows Feyre's older sister called Nesta and the sort of repercussions that she is facing after everything that happened in the Court of Wings and Ruin. I almost forgot what that was called. This one focuses a lot on the mental health aspect of people who are just dealing with trauma and post-traumatic stress and just anxiety and grief. A lot of this book was just about people overcoming their own inner demons and finding that they do have the strength to continue on, and that they are in fact loved and appreciated and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this book. There is smut in this. I'm not going to say there's not, because it's a Sarah J. Maas book. There is smut in this, and I do actually think, like, I'm a fan of smut, don't get me wrong, but I do actually think the smut sort of, the sex scenes took me out of the story a little bit. Like, they were sexy, they were hot, but at the same time I feel like there was no need for them. at the same time. I don't know, it could have just been me in the moment as I was reading this, but yeah, I just felt like I didn't need it, but at the same time I understood the sort of reasoning as to why there was smut involved, because it is a way of people connecting to each other and stuff like that. So yeah, I was never really bored with this, but I can definitely say not one of my favorites. I did enjoy everything about this book. Everything about this book I really enjoyed, from the friendships to just the way that Sarah J Maas wrote about trauma and grief was really interesting to me. So yeah, I really liked it. I think I gave it a 3.5, 4 stars, something around there. Alrighty, so those are all the books that I read over the course of the 2 months. Not as many as I would have hoped, but unfortunately uni just kicked my butt and I was not prepared for it to kick my butt, and then I needed to have a break afterwards and just sleep for about a week. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them. I would really like to know. We'll be doing more videos from now on. I do apologize for the amount of time that I have taken off. Sometimes you just need to have a break. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed. Give this video a thumbs up if you did, and if you'd like to see more from me, then do be sure to click that subscribe button down below, the big red one. You can also check out my Twitter and Instagram if you'd like to follow me over on there, so you can stay up to date with what I'm doing. And yeah, here's to reading more books, hopefully, fingers crossed. Alright, I will see you guys in another video later on.